Dr. Cindy here. Listen, I'm not reading an essay today, but I have been reading a lot of Facebook stuff, especially the little scare we had yesterday. I actually thought, for those of us who are periodically banned from Facebook for periods of time, I thought that was one of those times, because I was actually in the midst of an argument with an irate white woman racist who was talking about wanting to take the country back, and she had been questioned on it. So I weighed in, and she began her comment back to me, or her retort, with "Excuse me." So I was having a thing, and then all of a sudden I was cut off. I said, "Damn it, Facebook, this bee, and got me banned from Facebook." But it turns out that, according to CNET, there was a big series of glitches with respect to Facebook. But anyway, and I'm going to be digressing because I'm not reading an essay, so I would like for you to bear with me here. And if you see that I am, hey everybody, if you see that I am digressing, maybe just throw a little comment out there like, going off topic, because there's so much stuff. I was just sitting up thinking about how, I hope you can hear me. I forgot to put my microphone on. Can you hear me? I forgot to put wait. I bought another mic. It even has the little covering, but I forgot to put the darn thing in. So, if you can hear me, signal with a comment. If not, I will close this thing out and start over like I did the other time. Okay? Let me know. I need for you to let me know. Oh, it's okay. Oh, good. Okay, good. At least Timothy said so. Okay, so Timothy, I'm gonna go with you, and also Michael, who say that you can hear me. Good. Well, I know everybody's been reading about the outing of the pay-to-play wealthy white people, and how they basically flew in the face of the meritocracy. Because the meritocracy is a fallacy, an untruth, okay? It doesn't really exist. But before I digress, I want to talk a little bit first about affirmative action. Everybody's got their own subjective view of it at this point. But I'd like to tell you what it really was. After the Civil Rights Act, there was supposed to be some form of reparation. See, we've begun to associate reparations with monetary reward, or, some sort of monetary thing. But back then, the form of reparation or repair for past discrimination was affirmative action. Now, no good deed for black people goes without punishment to black people. Okay? So you know that old saying, no good deed goes unpunished. Well, trust me, anything in theory done for us is going to screw us over in the final analysis. Okay? I know every one of my black brethren and sisterin know that things that were designed to help us always usually hurt us when it comes to white people's interpretation of it, white people's design of it. So, affirmative action, reparations. This was also supposed to be the remedy for the thousands of class action lawsuits which were going to companies because equal opportunity as a thing became something legal that could be adjudicated litigiously. Okay? So a number of class action lawsuits were forming by people because equal opportunity at that time was also the burden of the employer to prove they didn't. Not as it is today, where the burden of proof is on the person. That was flipped by our boy Clarence Thomas before he got on the Supreme Court. During Reagan's time. Boy, history's a mother effer. History is a thing. When you know, you don't have to guess. You don't have to be subjective in your rationale. You know this is what happened. So affirmative action was supposed to be a reparation for people who were black people who were discriminated against. In order for it to fly legally, they had to put sex and race. Age and those other things didn't come till later. But anyway, so companies with 50 or more employees, certainly government contractors, had to comply. That was already a piss off for them, because now they were being told, now you got to hire them niggers. You got to hire these Negro colored employees. You got to at least, nope, well, let me backtrack a little bit there. Nope, because it wasn't saying that. Let me backtrack. I got a little carried away. What was actually going on was we just want you to make an effort. They say to the companies, just make an effort. Just what they called a good faith effort. Now, as part of this good faith effort that you're going to make to actually go out and look to see if there's some that exist out here, you know, because the line was, there are just no black people who are qualified for these positions. Well, if you just make a good faith effort to look and say, as part of this good faith effort, you commit to maybe hiring one this year, maybe two next year, maybe even three in year 3. That was all it was. It was opening an opportunity. That's all it was. Now, at the same time, simultaneously to this wonderful good faith effort that was being done by white people in these big companies and these government contractors and whatnot, there was the effort to flip it. How dare you give us quotas? How dare you tell us that we have to hire these black people? This is a quota system. This is, how dare you? We should be able to do whatever we want in our companies. But you know, that old carrot and stick thing, we won't give you any more government funds. We won't support you, subsidize you, socialize your company. We won't, what is it? Socialism? We won't give you, we won't afford you, big corporation, socialism if you don't do what we ask. We're not forcing you. We just won't subsidize you any damn more. Okay, so some made good faith efforts. Now, meantime, you got the ones, now I'm going to start getting into school now because I'm talking about employment, but now I'm going to talk about school, okay? So, starts out, schools are recruiting based on their affirmative action goals and timetables, which is what they were called. Now, you might be asking, how does she know all about this? Well, I worked for a period of time in an affirmative action unit of a legal department in a bank here in Philadelphia for some years. Actually, if you are familiar with that movie Trading Places, that's the building I worked in. That was called the Fidelity Building. And the bank was called Fidelity Bank. And they were in the midst of a consent decree for sex discrimination. So they formed an affirmative action unit. First it was in the personnel department, then they moved it to the legal department. So that's how I know. Firsthand, saw the beginning influx of nice, clean-cut, polished black men, all shiny and suited, coming in for positions in the bank, and then that trickled down to basically the two first, which were black women, which eventually trickled down to nothing but white women. I watched the whole thing happen, because I was responsible for the statistics. Anyway, you know, them good faith efforts and whatnot, and them timetables, I was responsible for all of that. I got to see it all. All right? Anyway. I love my coffee. Anyway, so, now, in the meantime, like I said, almost simultaneously with all this good faith effort going on, there were white supremacist racists who decided that reverse discrimination was going to be the script flip. And the only way that they could do that, the only way that they could accomplish reverse discrimination, it took some time for it to actually come to fruition, where it was actually a thing that people actually thought, well, yeah. Why? Because anybody can be racist. You know, that whole interpersonal, individual thing that racism became. And I know I've talked ad nauseum about that whole post-racial colorblind era where whiteness as a state of being was erased and replaced with normal, neutral, natural. And of course, when the Civil Rights Act was signed, that meant racism as an institution was gone. It didn't exist anymore. And in doing, at the same time, you had your Me movement, which affected white people more than black people, because we were still developing our collective consciousness as black people, we as a people, and they were developing their independence, so to speak, and individuality, which also had the effect of relinquishing any responsibility or accountability for racism. And so we also got to share that whole thing. But anyway, I told you to tell me when I'm digressing. But anyway, we already knew, black people already knew. You ask, and every thread that I have read on affirmative action relative to this thing that's been going on with these wealthy white people, I read that the black people already knew. We already knew. We knew this was going on because we live, for lack of a better way to describe this thing, we live in a duality of systems. We live within, many of us live within the white economic class caste, as well as the system of racism. So we have the system of economic caste, and we have the system of racism that we deal with. So we see it from both angles. And we knew that this kind of crap was going on. Was nothing surprising about the fact that very, very wealthy white people were doing this. They were doing this all the time. You know, it reminds me of the laws and regulations that are in place now that are supposed to be designed to keep people in that upper echelon, upper class, those investors, from doing stock trading on the sly, slick, and the wicked. You know, insider trading. They've been doing it for eons. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple people get caught, and then now, you know, they get their little regulations together. No, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Well, it's the same thing here. They've been doing it for eons. They call it legacy. Rich white families donate a building, a whole building. Donate a whole entire building. The such and such and whatever law building for the humanities or whatever. and their child gets to go to the school. I even have a particular recollection of working in a law firm where the one of the attorneys whose brother was a major player in the firm and who was the de facto boss of the firm, he brought his daughter in. Now his daughter was dumb as an oyster, dumb AF, dumb AF. She used to sit there. We used to laugh because we used to say she in there trying to find herself. She had a nice little office, but the door would be open and she'd be staring down at her empty desk, just staring. So we say, there she trying to find herself. And her papers were literally being done by her dad. All of her legal papers, all of her schoolwork was being done by her dad. How do I know this? Because one of my dear friends was the secretary who had to type those goddamn school papers and knew that this is what was going on. And she also knew, and I know that if there's anybody here that remembers this law, I'm not going to mention a law firm, but if you remember me in this law firm, you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. Because she didn't even do her bar exam. Someone was paid to take her bar exam for her. Okay? So, you sit up there and you look at it and you know what's happening, and what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Not a blessed thing. Because you did your job. What I look like going to the managing partner saying, such and such doesn't do anything. But sit there and stare at the empty desk all day long. And she's making in the high, 5 figures at that time? Which would probably in today's money be in the mid 6 figures. If you count for inflation. But anyway, so we know that this stuff happens all the time. And affirmative action was not even supposed to be stigmatized, but it was. And the reason why it was stigmatized was because it needed to reinforce white supremacy. Level playing field is important to reinforcing white supremacy, because if there is no level playing field, if there is somebody wrote a foot, not a thumb on the scale, but if there isn't if there is a foot on that scale, then that just completely obliterates any notion of superiority, doesn't it? Because you're being helped to be white and to succeed. Okay? So it dictates you have to have a level playing field. So racism went away. Okay? Affirmative action was supposed to be a leg up. But they took that and flipped it and twisted it so that it appeared that anybody black participating in affirmative action was inferior. Now, I'm just going to say this, and if this is not the case, you put it in the comments. But white women did not experience the inferiority complex associated with affirmative action. That is my take. They may have experienced other things, but they didn't experience the glass ceiling, but they did not experience the inferiority that was set upon black people for being participants in affirmative action, when you and I, as black people, know, and I use this analogy, of having not only to walk on water, but then turn that very water into wine in order to get the opportunity. How do I know this? Because those black people trying to get into the Fidelity Bank during the 1970s had to be rocket scientists to become tellers. Okay? Yeah, they did. Anyway, so, oh, hi, Billy Gillen. Oh, thank you. Yeah, hey, yeah. You know what? I got something I don't want y'all to see my messed up bedroom, so I'm not moving. But I'm going but I got to find something on Facebook. What is that? They did not and do not. So much so that they don't realize that they benefit. Absolutely. Jessica, you are the inspiration for this video. I'm so glad you got on here because you, my darling, are the inspiration for this video. I'm putting it out there now. Jessica, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I think Oladapo. You are the inspiration for this video because we were having a wonderful discussion about this whole thing and how affirmative action was given a scar, a scarlet letter for any black person. And it got to the point where any black person, even today, who is attending college, mind you, affirmative action as it existed that many years ago does not exist today. Okay? Keep in mind that it was only a good faith effort with goals and timetables. But when the meritocracy kicked in terms of education, that obliterated any hope of affirmative action being used unless the particular school was still a government contractor, got subsidies from their state and federal government. Okay? But private colleges and universities do not have to adhere to it. If they do it voluntarily. Trust me, I can remember when you had to have a photo on your application for employment. And then I can remember when when it was not required for you to have a degree, and they could not even put it in the ad. It had to be a degree or equivalent experience because black people were excluded collectively. You might get one or two who may have had some sort of economic opportunity. You know, they might have been afforded some measure of economic or financial success, which is possible under the system of racism. We know this. And it's always been possible because we wouldn't have had the W.E.B. Du Boises, we wouldn't have had the Martin Luther Kings, you know, the religions and the entertainments, people. The pastors and pastors, school teachers, and the entertainment people. Okay, those were the areas where religion, education to a degree, just to a degree, and entertainment were the areas where we were allowed to enter on a limited, apportioned basis. Anyway. Oh, you clap. Oh, yeah, girl. Anyway, I was going to try to find that Facebook post that where we were actually talking about it. But I better not, because if I do, then it's going to wipe out the picture and stuff. I'm not going to be able to see everybody. But anyway, yeah, so if you got any comments? Anybody else want to talk about this stuff? Oh, like I said, there was something else too. This isn't related to the affirmative action or meritocracy, but it was something that I wanted to talk about today. Oh, let's see. Early policies excluded most black people. Yep, absolutely. That's right. That New Deal wasn't for no black people. That's why when I hear when I hear talk about this thing, no, I have it. I actually have it, Jessica. I actually have it. It's just that I'm using Facebook Live, and if I leave this to go into, I guess I could get my. Hold on one second. Don't look at my net. Don't look at my crummy room. You know what I'm gonna do? Wait a minute. You can't see my. My room's a hot mess. Okay. My bed's not made. My room is a hot mess. Okay, anyway. Okay, let me move this more to the center. So, see, because I got my PC right here so I can look directly at the camera, at somewhat. Okay, I'm going to get on Facebook here on my iPad. And I'm going to see if I can find this other thing that I wrote. I got a really nice compliment on it, too. I thought that was kind of nice. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. This was actually something that had to do with, Jussie Smollett was arraigned today, and he pled not guilty, which I think indeed he should have. But there's been so much talk about him. There's been so much vilification of him, and the sad thing about that is, I got a lot of unlikes. I don't know how you do unlike. I guess you do unlike when you like something, then you unlike it, I guess. But you know how you look at your stats. Every now and then I'll take a look at the stats because I hit the button by mistake. Okay, let me see if I can find it. It was something that I wrote. Here it is. This was a comment. Now, this wasn't on Jussie Smollett. This is the one that I was looking for. I said, there should never have been a stigma of inferiority placed on affirmative action. It was the closest thing to an actual repair, as in reparation, we were provided in terms of nothing more than an opportunity. Affirmative action was not a handout, white people. Black people had to be qualified to be considered in an arena where exclusion was the norm. Companies and schools were only required to look for and consider a small, and the number was small, it was never even in the double digits for any particular period of time. Within a set goal and time, within a set timetable. You might have had a whole year to hire 3 damn people. Companies and schools were only required to look for and consider a small number of chocolate chips in a sea of vanilla. Claiming black people brought in through affirmative action were inferior was done to diminish the quality and the intellect of black people who were finally afforded the opportunity, and to reinforce white supremacy. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that because it's important to understand it in terms of white supremacy and this paradox. That's my favorite go-to word now because we live within paradoxes. This entire ideology creates paradoxes that we live in every single day. And this one is based on the fallacy of meritocracy and what affirmative action meant and what it really was designed to do and what it ended up being all about. And now I just found out that it's supposed to be going up to the Supreme Court yet again. But this time, the Trumplican Supreme Court is going to kill it for good. It's going to be gone. I mean, it pretty much doesn't exist anymore anyway. And you do have a few schools who, despite everything that has been taken away from it, are still trying to adhere, at least in some measure, to the, the theory or the, of it. But it's getting ready to go away. Oh, okay, now I just found that Jussie Smollett thing. Because, everybody was really vilifying the poopy out of Jussie Smollett. But I want to show you this Daily Beast article where this individual named Jacob Wall faked death threats against himself. You can find it on my page, on my formal like page, and it looks like this. Okay? And when I read it, I said, let me comment about this thing. Because he basically was doing the exact same thing that Jussie did. I mean, he didn't get beat up, but he did damn near everything else. So I said, okay, here's one for you. Let's hear the outrage over his behavior. There is none. Crickets. I just happened on this particular article myself. Okay? Anybody listening? Anybody outraged? Okay. You will not hear anything close to the vilification hoisted on Jussie Smollett. Now, why? Why do you suppose you're not hearing anything about Jussie Smollett? Now, and I don't want this to turn into but Jussie guilty, Jussie did, and Jussie did this, and we as a people. Because I'm telling you, right here, why you are not going to see the same kind of outrage from either blacks or whites, and certainly not white people, okay? You're not going to see the level of outrage that was hoisted on Jussie for what he allegedly did, because this white man enjoys the independence of individuality. White people don't see him as a collective, as existential threat. Do you know what I mean when I say that? What he does not affect them in the way that Jussie affected us. They hold no perception of this guy, Jacob Wall, having done something to them as a people. You need to understand what I'm saying, because this is really deep, and it's something we really got to get out of for the sake of ourselves, okay? We as a people, got to get out of this, we as a people, okay? They don't have an innate desire to separate themselves from him, to remove him from the white club. There is no white card to give up or barbecue to ostracize him from. There just isn't. Simply put, what he did does not affect all white people. Why? Because they enjoy and have enjoyed for generations the independence afforded them through individuality, which happened around the same time as the post-racial colorblind era, and at the same time as the Me movement in the 70s. Look at your history, people. History. I love it. Because then you don't have to guess. Then you know. And it doesn't have to be subjective either, because you know. So you won't see any outrage for this white boy. Nope. That behavior is still reserved for some black people who are still stuck in generations of collective blame and shame. And I'm going to tell you, I was talking to my husband, and my husband, it started out with him asking me about MAGA and everything, and we were talking everything, and and we got to talking about blame and shame, and how we put so many unrealistic kinds of pressures on ourselves as people. We must unite as people. That is not only impossible, but it's unrealistic, and it should not even be part of anybody's construct. You shouldn't even consider that that could ever happen, because it will never, and it doesn't have to. We are individuals. We are just going to have to learn how to discern when to draw in our innate collectivism, that thing which binds us inextricably, that we got as soon as we started identifying with our blackness in the 60s and the 50s, and we started thinking, hey, they keep saying black is bad, but black is good. I'm black and I'm proud. Okay, we're going to take this bad thing and we're going to make it a good thing, and yeah, we black, and guess what? It's good. How about that? We love it. We, as a people, love it. So while we doing all this, white people was going, me, my, I. Me, my, I. It's all about me. It's all about I. It ain't about we. You know what I mean? And they were discovering their individuality, because, trust me, prior to the 1960s, they were a collectivism of collective whiteness. And that disappeared in favor of natural, neutral, and normal. Listen, I am going to bang that into everybody's heads, because you need to understand it. That Band-Aid you get at the CVS, that bandage, is neutral because it's white. Is natural because it's white, and it's normal because it's white. That's why they didn't have to say white people no more. They only had to say people. That's why they didn't have to say white Americans, because they were already Americans. The American people. Who do you think they're talking about? Themselves. White people. So anyway, I don't want to digress again, but here's the point. We have to understand that when things happen to individual people like Jussie Smollett, it does not affect all of us as a collective, and it should not. There are forces that try to do the white supremacy demands that it does, but we don't have to buy into it. We don't have to say, yeah, that's right, so let's separate him from the pack. Jussie, you out the club. Omarosa, you out the club. Who's the other ones? There's a bunch of them. I mean, you can, but that's your individual decision, and you are entitled to it. Just don't call it the entire race. And I'm going to tell you where it came from. Here's where it came from. And I know, like I said, I was talking to my husband. He listens. I just love my husband, because he's such a nice guy. It came from the enslavement. Truth be told, and he was like, huh? Yeah. I don't care how we try to kick and scream our way out of not acknowledging our history. The more we try to deny how it affects us today, we are going to remain paradoxically confused about our situations and why we do what we do. Back in the enslavement times, punishment was a way to manage the enslaved. Unspeakable punishments. I just finished reading this book about white women slave owners and how they used to teach their 3-year-old children to beat their enslaved. At 3 years old, they used to teach their children to beat the slaves until they bled. And that was a way of teaching them how to manage the slaves that would then become theirs when they became adults. So, just to give you an idea of the kinds of punishments and things that were meted out to the enslaved, they did it in order to control them all. So I want you to get a picture of this. Slave runs away. Slave comes back. They don't just do something to him, although they do whip his ass and whatnot for doing it on the way back to the plantation. But they make an example of him to all of the other slaves. So you're sitting there looking at this man being beat until his skin comes off his bones, and you're being told that the same thing is going to happen to you and you and you and you and you if you decide to run off. So we as a people have to try to keep each other from running away. And if one of us goes and does something stupid, I'm being so facetious, as run away, and he gets away, and the other ones are like, oh, give me a good, I don't have a good slave name. Oh, I can use my great-great-great-great-grandmother's. What did Dicey do? What did Dicey do? She ran away. Well, we don't want to have no more to do with her. If she come back, we're going to have to stay away from her. We are going to have to ostracize, well, they don't know, but we're going to have to stay away from her because just by associating with her, it can affect all of us. Well, that's what happens with Jussie. God damn it, Jussie. You were accused, not even proven. He was accused of having beat himself up or had others beat him because he was, with the whole idea of it is ludicrous. But it's able to be believed because, why? Because we want to ostracize ourselves from this person. Because what he did, and don't tell me I'm barking up the wrong tree, because I have read the comments. Man, what he did, you know, he just made our entire race look bad. He just affected everybody. We as a people got it this, and we as a people got it that, and black people must, and we have to unite, and what? Please. That's the kind of crap that really pisses me off. Because by this time, in the 21st century, there's too much out there to get your head in gear, to begin to think critically and realize that these are all tools of the white supremacists to keep you thinking that you will never unite, stay together, stop killing one another. I mean, the whole thing. All of which are just absolutely ridiculous, and you shouldn't even be putting yourself through it. It was one guy who made a comment about we need to lock and load. It's time for us to this. It's time for us to that. I say, yeah. Why? When are you gonna do that? See, because I'm coming from a completely different standpoint. I'm saying you as an individual. When are you gonna do it? He didn't have an answer for that. Not at all. Because I might, no, he did have somewhat of an answer. I might, because I'm just one person. Yeah, but doesn't that defeat the purpose? Doesn't that defeat, they got enough, they got plenty lone wolf white people out there. Oh, that was bad. That was bad. You get my point, though. Individuals. We have to learn how to be individuals. Now, I know some people are saying, like, I'm an individual. I know what it means to be an individual. I'm my own person. Yeah. But you let one thing happen to one right person in a negative way, and you will be right up there on social media with everybody else talking about the same thing. Talking about the same thing. Differentiating yourself, distancing yourself, ostracizing that person. They lose their black card. They lose their space in the collective. So, anyway, those are the two things that have been kind of pressing on me today. I wanted to do some more stuff on them yesterday, but of course, as you know, CNET reported that Facebook was messed up, and it was. And it took, at one point toward the evening, it took 3 times. Like you had to post it, get the little red exclamation point, copy it, post it, copy it, post it, copy it, post it, and then finally it would post. It seems to be okay now, and of course there are all kinds of speculation. There's all kind of speculation out there that we were hacked by Russia or China or somebody, and I'm noticing that it is conspicuously. There's no news about it other than what I read in CNET so far, and conspicuous by its absence is the news about this on the cable channels because it was big. I mean, it affected the entire platform. Everybody was asking questions about it. So, anyway, I don't think I'm going to put this on YouTube. This was just one of those live videos that I wanted to just get on here and just talk about this stuff, this whole pay-to-play thing, and the fallacy of meritocracy. There's no such thing as a meritocracy. There's no such thing as merit. Okay? Not really. That was yet another tool, because underserved and black people, poor and black people, have very, very little opportunity to be meritorious. And even with these rich people having all the opportunity in the world to do good works in order to get into these good schools, they don't want to bother. Why should they? If all they got to do is get a building built, or pay $400,000 to make it appear that somebody is a sports engaged in sports and can get a sports scholarship, probably. Somebody else posted that, the scholarship money just must be off the chain that these very wealthy white people were getting. Merit. I mean, scholarships are just about all based on merit now, and not financial need. Very difficult to get a scholarship now. And that's by design. You know it is. You know it, and I know it. And now with affirmative action, what's left of it getting ready to go by the wayside, there will be no way to repair, I doubt in my lifetime, any way to repair the damage caused by discrimination all these years. It's a mess. You know, you just want to get some white people and just shake them and just say, wake the fuck up. Wake up! These are people like you doing this. This is your problem. But, well, wait. You know? It's a mess. Oh, hi, Christopher. I think you're the only one on here now at this point. I don't know who else is on here. But anyway, I'm getting ready to get off here because I'll get them rambling. I kind of feel like I'm like the people that I am talking to, the ones that actually get on here, that I can see you. It's kind of a little more interpersonal and interactive. I'm thinking of actually doing those things, doing that on my channel, like doing a live on my channel. I might try that one day once I get the, I don't want to say nerve, because I pretty much got the nerve now. When I first got on here, I was a mess. I got on, laughed, and got off. And then the next time, I think I was singing or some mess, and then I decided that I would use this as a way of discussing what is near and dear to my heart, which is equality, equity, justice, and opportunity. Racism, race, white supremacy, and evaluating racialized words. All those things. So, you guys hang in there. There's going to be a lot of stuff going down. I don't know whether you saw, but there was a Twitter post by Trump where he's talking about his strength and power in terms of violence. He's got the military, he's got this, he's got that, and like there could be trouble. He's actually he's contemplating violence, like real, literal violence. Real, live violence. Oh, I think I've been on here like way too long. Okay. I think I've been on here way too long. I only think you get a little while to be on here. So I'm going to get off and talk to you guys later. Chinny out.